Hello, Miss Raylene. You're looking as beautiful as ever, and my boy Erik, who I can't see, but I know is handsome too. I love you both.
Hello, thank you so much. And you look beautiful as always, too. Eric, of course, is saying, you know I'm handsome, you know this.
I know, my boy. Oh, I mean,
He's
even from
patting
look
his
at this,
shoulders.
look at this boy, so
Just look at
cute,
that cuteness. Just look at that
innocent.
cuteness.
Not that innocent, but mwah. Okay. We're going to talk about sacred geometry, and it's going to involve a little dumb it down for us, Erik, physics, but I find it fascinating. And I, excuse me, first of all, and I have some stuff from blog members. Um, what is sacred geometry, Erik? Exactly.
He says the way that you can look at sacred geometry as being a way of connecting to energy. Sacred geometry is a form of healing. Sacred geometry is shapes. He says when you think of the word geometry, you also think of numbers because it also connects to digits. So we're
Ooh,
combining,
that's interesting because he brought that up in a session about something else, but numbers. Yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah, cool. Go ahead.
yeah. He says when you combine these elements together, they bring a certain type of energy that connects to one another. Now, help me a little bit, Eric.
Yeah, please, all of us, please help
Showing the
us.
image of my head, the image in my head. So an L, and this L is connecting to like a circle. The circle is whole, and then there's another line that's connected to it. And he says that they carry different types of energy. It's not all the same type of energy. If you can put colors, great. You got orange, you got blue, then you
Oh,
got yellow, right? They're all
yeah,
different. They all do different things. They all carry a different vibration. And
yeah.
so each line, whether it's longer or whether it's shorter, it's carrying a different vibration. So they have an energy within themselves and they have a quality within themselves. He says the shapes that they can create have qualities, such as a triangle or a
Yeah.
pyramid. It is representation of protection,
Ah,
also like unity, whole. He shows like unity. Thank you. That's going to be the best word.
okay.
Connection, people being connected together. Squares are connected to grounding, stability, to
Ah,
needing to balance. If you are drawn to like squares, there's likely something that you are trying to balance in your life or something that you are trying to bring grounding to, bring stability to. There's different meanings for them, but he wants to talk more about the lines and whether they're bigger or shorter, the colors. Now, sacred geometry may not be something that you're seeing with the physical eye, just as color may not be something that you can see with the physical eye. He says some color is blind, is not there. When you think of air, there's a color to it, but it's not something
visible.
that you are
Yeah.
physically identifying with the colors that we have here on earth. It's a different type of vibration. And so we're talking about energy, the vibration that each identity has. He's referring to like each line, each symbol as its own identity. You can do healing when it comes to sacred geometry, physical healing to the body, physical healing when it comes
How?
to the earth.
How do you do that? Just look at pictures? I think I heard an
He says
EVP
this
there.
is
Wow. Okay.
he says you can use images, you can use candles. For instance, if you got a candle that is in the shape of a circle, you have sacred geometry that you're using. You put
Ah,
intent to that candle of bring healing to my crown chakra, bring healing to my
okay.
emotions. That's going to be what you do. If you're using a candle that's shaped, here's an example. So I've got crystals glued on this one.
Okay.
Those crystals also have sacred geometry to them. The
I'm going
shape
to
of
ask
the
about that. Yeah.
candle,
Yeah.
they do. The shape of the candle itself it has intention, it's wholeness, it's power, it gives it amplification. And so there's so much when it comes to learning what each property, what property each shape has within them. So, you know, there's a lot that you want to learn when it comes to that aspect of it. But when it comes to healing, you can envision, you don't need to have the physical shape there. If you
Okay.
don't know what the shape is going to do for you, but you have this idea of, I want an octagon, or there's a triangle that's coming through, imagine that shape going through your body with a certain type of light, whatever color comes to you, and envision it going through the body and bringing healing to you. Whether you are consciously aware of what that healing does, it's still providing healing because it's got energy that it's pushing through. It's got energy that it's using. It's got intention. He's talking about Archangel Metatron being
Oh,
associated
yeah.
with
Here we
geometry,
go.
sacred
Yep.
geometry.
There we go. I
I
got
love
it
it.
right
There's a
here.
cube.
Got a Metatron,
Absolutely.
Metacube or whatever. All right,
That
can we
is
do
his
a
Metatron cube.
okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I
Oh,
love that cube, by the way.
oh, that's cool.
Be
Yeah.
associated with it. You can use that angel to help you to connect. You can ask him to guide you to learn more about sacred geometry. But there's many ways of healing yourself with it, whether it's through meditation and envisioning a shape, whether it's through candles with a certain shape of a candle holder with a shape of a candle, an actual image of something that you're going to be looking at daily that's going to symbolize something to you, that's going to identify with a representation, something that it represents for you. For everybody, it may be different. Everybody identifies with, that's a good point. Everybody identifies with certain things, such as colors. Somebody might think red is love, but another person might think red is pain. So you
Yeah.
identify with it as an individual, not really as a whole. So
Okay.
think of it like that.
All right, let's do a lightning round on shapes. You said square, this grounding, and such. Circle. What is circle? What is that about?
Wholeness.
Okay. What about octagon? Stop
Very
signs.
powerful,
Yeah.
very powerful, and can enhance energy around the house. It's an enhancing symbol. It's also a healing symbol for stagnant, like stuckness, blockedness, not having movement.
Okay.
You can find candles with this shape.
So no bowel movements. You need an octagon shoved up your butt. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Mom,
We need. I
Erica.
know. My God, I probably channeled that from you, but we need a little comic relief.
It
All right.
wasn't
What
me. It
about?
wasn't me.
Okay. What about
But
diamonds?
represent fertility, growth, protection also. But fertility is the main thing that a diamond represents. And
Okay.
it's also expansion of the mind, expansion of your consciousness. When diamonds come to you, you likely are going through a spiritual awakening, or you are likely going to have your family being grown.
Okay.
Sacred geometry is a way that your guides communicate with you, whether it's through being drawn to somebody's glasses, a
Yeah.
shape, a symbol. There is sacred geometry with everybody's day-to-day life, in nature, in leaves. If you look at, you know, a leaf closely, you can see designs within them.
Oh yeah.
Sacred geometry is part of the physical body.
Yeah,
Your
and there's different ratios that are throughout nature. The Fibonacci number, I mean,
yeah,
the ratio of arms to legs and all that stuff, the ratio of veins of a leaf to the stem. I know it's crazy how amazing it is. And what's that all
because
about?
speaking of the leaf and the tree and the structure of it, when you identify with the human body, what it looks like inside is a tree. The vessels and grounding, you can actually pull up images and it'll look like a grounding tree going down.
Wow.
He says it's connected to the body, the wholeness of who we are, our identity on a soul level, our DNA. Gen, what is that? Not DNA. On a DNA level, yes, but also on a cellular level, it's in our body.
Okay.
And it brings healing on a cellular level. He talks about the eye. you know how like we have vessels, the vessels lead to another part of the organ, and it's all something that connects, like trees.
Yeah,
The
out
vessel,
of
it's
the
all about,
optic nerve where the optic nerve fits.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and that's where it all begins, is within the eye.
Wow.
It's huge. Animals, when you look at a snail, they have the swirls on
Yeah, the
them.
Fibonacci
Yes,
swirl. Yeah.
he says it has great purpose to it. What that identifies with is that you are going to be going through challenges and changes, but things that will lead to awareness of something else and a way of different thinking. It's like shedding an identity and growing a new identity.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, what about a star and then a pentagon?
There's many different types of stars.
Yeah.
Um,
Star of David type, and also let's just talk about the Star of David type, but also the star, like on the American flag.
so he says those have different meanings for each of them. They identify with something else, but the representation of star in general, it identifies with healing and also celestial energy,
Oh,
celestial beings, interdimensions. If you find that you are obsessed with an image of a star, you are likely connecting to other dimensions that are around you,
oh,
um, other worlds, things of that nature. But it's very healing. Light workers, energy healers, environmentalism, people that are very drawn to like planting, they are likely drawn to stars of some type.
okay. All right. What about a pentagon? Is that Satan? No, I can't remember if that's a Satan thing or not, but whatever.
So, Mom, if you identify with it as Satan, yes. He says it's what you
I don't.
identify with as
Yeah.
an individual. Oh, no, no, no. He goes, not like you personally, but an individual. If they're
Okay.
identifying with that as connecting to Satan, then that's what it is connected to. It's like belief system. If you don't believe in that, then it's not going to resonate with you. So he says that's taking it to a whole other level when you think about a symbol representing devil or,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
demonic work like that. That is more belief system and not necessarily sacred geometry. That is something that has had a title that was put
Yeah.
to it by somebody else.
Okay.
um,
So, I don't really quite understand. Is our energy a sacred geometry form, or is it a tool we use? I'm not.
our body is sacred geometry, our energy is sacred geometry,
Okay.
our DNA, our cellular, everything has got sacred geometry to it. He
And
shows you
is
with
it
something
different?
telescope.
Cells are different. Cells have different sacred geometry. Different
Yes,
chakras have different
yes,
sacred. As a whole, we have different sacred geometry compared to another
yes.
person. Is that it?
Yes, and each one carries a different vibration with it, just like the colors,
Oh,
as we were explaining
yeah,
with reds, whites, blues,
yeah,
yellows. There's a different vibration with each color, so there's going to be a different identity with each person. But on a whole spectrum, what everybody can identify with is the healing aspect of it and not so much the religion aspect that has been connected to it.
ah,
Um,
I didn't know
Sacred
that was
geometry
true.
has been
Yeah,
around for many years. You know, Mayan, Mayan people, ancient Egypt, it's around the walls. It's been here. It's
yeah.
something that has been communicated. It's a language, it's a way of speaking, it's a way of
Wow.
communicating. Because as you represent, as you know what each symbol represents, that can help you identify with what the message is, who's trying to tell you what, whether it's the gods, whether it's your guides. You're so dramatic.
Ah,
Whether it's Almighty. He says you can understand by learning how to identify with a symbol. He says if a symbol means something to somebody like a heart, a symbol could represent love. That's what that could identify with you. What that is identifying with you is what it's going to mean to you. He says you can go on that wide spectrum and learn sacred geometry and learn what each one does identify with. But he says that's on a professional level. if
Okay.
you wish to call it. He says you can identify with it on a personal level without having any education behind it. If
Okay.
you identify with a symbol as something, then that's what it identifies with for you. That's what
Okay.
it represents.
All right. So the
Um,
sacred geometry, it has different, unique colors, numbers, right? Vibrational frequencies, maybe different math to it, right?
Math is huge with it. Math is vibration. Math is a number of different varieties using symbols, shapes, and letters. It
Well, yeah,
combines
shapes.
a
It's
level.
yeah, that's right. I forgot shapes, colors, numbers, um, and vibrational frequency. All is involved in sacred geometry. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Sacred geometry. God, I wish I could mimic him a little bit better than I do, but I can't.
Aw,
He's so funny over here. He says, you
he's
do. You
goof.
don't realize how many different things that are connected to sacred geometry. He says, from birth, you are brought in identifying with sacred geometry, but you may not be consciously aware of it. But there are symbols, there are shapes that are presenting themselves to you. When you look at your mother, you're seeing a triangle on her nose, you're seeing a circle on her eyes.
Oh
You are
yeah.
identifying with wholeness already. You are identifying with protection already. You are identifying with nurture. So he says it's from
God,
the
that's
second you
weird.
come in till the second you go out. It's a way of communication, language. He says letters. Letters can communicate any language. It's a matter of how you
Oh
perceive that letter. English is
yeah.
different from Spanish. Spanish is different from Europe. It's a matter of perception. Each word carries a different vibration. Each shape, each line has a different meaning,
And emotion
whether
too,
it's
probably. Right?
for,
Different emotions, maybe.
yes, yes,
That's probably the
exactly.
big one because we are, like you say, Eric, we're emotional beings. So, yeah, maybe you could talk about that.
He says, Mom, if you think of a line that is all fucked up and kind of like this, it's not straight. He says, what kind of emotion do you think this type of line is going to have with it versus this type of line? If it's bigger, solid, or wobbly, what type of emotion? He says, the line identifies with itself for how it looks. I'm going to show you the crystal that I'm holding here. Do you see how there's lots of different shapes in the crystal?
Yeah.
Lots of different energy. Each crystal carries different energy, but each shape, these are diamonds, these are triangles. That has more power to it when you're trying to do, whether this is healing, your physical body or clearing energy in a physical space. That line carries a vibration. That crease carries a vibration, whether it's bigger or smaller, the bigger the vibration is going to be, the heavier the vibration is going to be. But as he's talking about something being kind of lopsided, that line is not going to be very pleasurable for you.
Okay.
It's going to have a different type
Okay.
of
So you just
energy to
tilt
it.
your head this way and all of a
But
sudden it's upright.
yes, he says, if you like to be lopsided in life, if you like to be imbalanced, that line may resonate with you more than the line that's like this. He says, so it all depends on individuals. Your identity is going to resonate with something else.
Okay. That's so cool.
Um,
So is there somebody that's can put a mathematical equation to different sacral geometry? I mean, and if so, what use would that be, if any?
so rephrase your question.
Well, yeah, I didn't do that very well. So there's math behind everything, really. I mean, so can you
So this is
create a
Eric.
mathematical equation for each type of sacral geometry, like
Yes,
this, like
yes,
one of my liver cells or whatever? Okay,
yes, yes, you can.
cool.
For your liver, for your heart, each organ has its own geometry to it,
So what can you
has
do
its
with that
own math
math?
to it. So think
Yeah.
of geography and math. When you are learning like the basics, how to do mapping and the scales,
Oh yeah.
uh, that right there, how it changes grows, how it progresses, or how it decreases. It's like the health of a physical body, whether you have heart damage or you have a healthy heart. It's a scale that has movement with it. It's
Oh,
never one solid shape. It grows, it expands, it changes throughout life, because your heart, your liver is never going to be the same as day one. It is
yeah.
something that has the ability to form as you grow, whether it's forming into a shape that's known to humankind or to a shape that is not identified. It's got structure to it. It's got identity to it. It's got energy to it. It's got vibration. Energy is much different than vibration. Vibration is the level of energy. How much of energy does it carry? Where is
Okay.
it vibrating at? And so for each line, each paradigm, it has its own length.
Okay.
It has its own vibration.
Wavelengths, like a wavelength.
Yes,
There's a
yes,
wavelength, and there's of course the amplitude of the wave. This is a short wavelength, high amplitude, and this is a low. A long wavelength, low amplitude. So is that what you're talking about?
yes, yes. And even music. So better to understand.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
if we
music has
talk about
sacred
music
geometry too. Sacred
all the
geometry
way.
too, right?
Yes, all the way. And you
Wow.
can actually see it. You might not see it like you're seeing a physical person, but you might see it through vibration. You might see like shadowy air moving around you. You might see it through vibration. And so he says that when you, to give you an analogy to better understand this, when you think of rock and roll music, and then you think of songs like meditation, water, waves, calmness, this is a different vibration
Oh
from being
yeah.
down. So that right there could be that really low, and this
Yeah.
right here could be this really high. Okay.
Hmm.
He says those are the different forms of sacred geometry. Is there a lower form of energy? Yes. Is there a higher form of energy? Yes.
So
Is there right?
how can you use sacred geometry to heal? Like say somebody has a liver condition. How would they help heal with sacred geometry?
You intend to go into meditation is one way, and having a envision a shape of an octagon or a triangle.
Okay.
Those shapes bring healing to you, and also squares. And envision those shapes, whether you are aware of what the shape is doing for you. If you bring in Archangel Metatron, he will help to guide the shapes to do the
Oh,
complete work that they need to do. So he says you don't have to be aware of all of the properties within each
shape.
shape. If you feel drawn to it, use it. It's in your mind for a reason.
Or the
Um,
combination of
triangles,
shapes, right?
triangles,
Go ahead.
absolutely. Triangles, circles, hearts, these are things that bring healing. But if you're dealing with a liver issue, it's going to be different, because this liver issue may come in because there's a really bad relationship that this person has been in their entire life, or it may be that they have alcohol abuse
Hmm.
and they have caused this, and there's a lesson that they need to learn how to get through this.
Right.
So there's also different energy that's linked to each case. You're funny. He's talking about people as like cases, but he's going somewhere else with it.
Goof.
Anyways, um, and so he says for each person, they're gonna identify the way they do.
All right. So, can you go online and say, I want to see what sacred geometry I can visualize, meditate on. I want to see an illustration, an image,
Yes,
because I have heart disease. So you could probably do that, right?
yes.
Maybe.
He says yes, but if there is something in that person's life that's keeping that heart disease there, they're not going to experience a full healing because there's something in their environment that's causing the illness.
Okay. What is the basic purpose of sacred geometry?
Communication, one. was the main reason
Okay.
to healing. Now he says you can go in and do the meditation and ask for healing. He says, now I do want to warn people, if you are going in to ask for healing and you end up leaving a relationship that's challenging for you to leave, he says that's because you're being prompted to do it. So you
Okay.
can have healing that leads you into change that you may not be okay with, but the change is going to be something that's beneficial in the end. So you might not see the healing immediately, but you're going to be drawn to certain things that are going to bring you healing, whether it's leaving a job or a relationship, something of that
Okay.
nature. So
Are there aliens or other entities that actually communicate only through sacred geometry?
yes,
Cool.
yes, absolutely. We have got a number of extraterrestrials that communicate through shapes and numbers. When you think about Chinese symbols,
Mm.
that right there is
Oh,
sacred
that's
geometry,
true.
a form
Yeah.
of language
Well, so is
from,
our, our alphabet too, probably is.
it
Although
is,
not as complicated. Um,
exactly. Where were we going with that? Thinking about the numbers that they create and where the identity came from. He says numbers and shapes came from somewhere. It wasn't something that was just brought upon here. We originally started creating this through the help of extraterrestrials.
oh,
He's talking about not physically having them there or like on your planet, but them physically communicating through like the mind telepathically.
ah,
So it's not like invasion of extraterrestrial. This
ah,
is a different type of way that they put information into the human mind. It came in from them.
oh,
Not
cool.
all, but
What if we
most.
did not have any sacred geometry? What would happen? Would there be no reality? I mean, I mean, is
He
this,
says everything is made up of sacred geometry. There would be no nothing. There would be no trees. There would be no water. There would
ah,
be no
so it's kind of
cellular
like the
data.
blueprint for
Yes,
reality? Is that it?
yes.
So
That is where our identity begins.
so how does that relate to the string theory, where a string vibrates and creates a particle or reality, whatever?
Like a tree, the tree of life. The string then vibrates and creates different realities, different identities. When you think of how can a string create a different reality or string a different type of identity, it's a string. Think of the string as having life within it. Don't think of it as being an object. He says, think of you as
Yeah.
having life. Well, obviously, but he says, think of sacred geometry as having life, identifying with its energy because it's got a vibration. It's a different type of life that's not you or I, it's vibration.
Well,
It's
are all
vibrational
the
life.
lines, circles, or whatever in a like a one sacred geometry pattern? Are those the strings that vibrate, or is that something totally different?
They are all different. They all have different qualities, different vibrations. However, they all connect together. So say you have a circle over here and a square over here and a heart down here. They all look completely different, right?
Right.
But these things can change. They can merge together and create something different. Whether it's a circle that is endless, it is
Yeah.
all endless. They connect together. So it's like a pattern that is, do you know what is that called? Infinity sign looks like.
Oh yeah. Right.
I'm drawing it. The
Yeah.
infinity sign. It's like infinity. It's endless. It does not end. And so it's a cycle that can change, that can grow big, large. It can grow in forms of sound. It can grow in forms of like vibration. It changes every day, every second. Sacred geometry is changing. It resonates at a certain vibration, which is why it's becoming more known to
Yeah.
humanity right now.
Okay. So
We're
sometimes you have these
connecting.
beautiful sacred geometry um, patterns, right? Are all of those lines involved in this ornate sacred geometry pattern, are those the strings of the string theory?
Yes.
Or is that something? Okay. Okay, so it's pretty much the nature of reality is created by sacred geometry. Sacred geometry. Oh, I'll never get that right.
And it all starts from a tree.
Oh,
If you guys
wow.
can just image, that tree, and when you look at a plant, you can see whether it's little squares, little lines in plants and flowers. When you look at flowers, like the circle of them, there's circles all around flowers. They're
Yeah.
in every little thing that we have. Your physical body, your physical eyes, your nose, our mouth, we have that
Yeah.
sacred geometry physically inside and outside.
Yeah. All right. So, do different patterns of sacred geometry combine to create a different effect, or I mean, do they work
Yes.
together? Tell me about that.
So he says it's like, think about having superpowers. We have Superman over here and we have Batman over here. I love where this is going. All right. He says Batman wants to be able to fly like Superman. And so what are they going to do? They're going to come together and they're going to have this merging. They don't lose their identities of who they are, right? They just share powers. They now can both fly and do
Oh,
all wonderful
okay,
things that
good.
both
I
superheroes could
got it.
do.
Great
So,
analogy. All right, what about the sacred geometry of the COVID-19 virus? And also maybe the collective that's panicking about it. So let's just talk about the sacred geometry and COVID-19.
he says, wow, that's where it all begins. He says it begins from a cell, something that has been created and mutated to form and identify with a vibration of illness. He says this is something that is lower frequency. He says this is a great example of how vibrations are so drastic and can be so different from one another, from black to white. He
Yeah.
says that when we identify with a virus and what that shape causes, what that image is doing, is it causing illness? Is it causing pain? What is so frequencies, like what hertz. He's talking about
Oh,
like
yeah.
hertz frequencies,
Okay.
tuning forks, bells, like that type of frequency. The lower ones, the ones that can be very, I want to go to sleep, I'm draining.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the frequency of where it's at. He says it
Oh,
has a purpose. It has a meaning of why it's there. It's not that it wants to drain you. It's not that it wants to cause epidemic. It's simply that it wants to teach us a lesson.
okay. All right. So, can we somehow change
Talking
its
of,
sacred geometry so that it's not going to kill as many people? And if so,
no,
how? No.
you can't
Okay. Because,
change sacred geometry.
yeah,
Sacred geometry is something that
it changes you
changes
probably.
as it evolves. Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And
So,
it changes itself as it evolves.
yeah.
Um, he says the purpose of that is to help people, to help the planet to come back into natural growing. We do not know how to take care of ourselves as,
Self-reliance. Yeah.
yes, we
And
rely on a
collective
source.
compassion. Yeah, we're going to have another session on that. So you guys can email me your questions for that. But, music, how people use music or stand-up comedy or whatever, dancing to raise their vibration. Is that because it somehow affects our sacred geometry, even on a
Yes,
cellular
because
level?
you are dancing in a shape, whether it's a shape of a circle or a square
Oh,
or a
okay.
shape of a
Okay.
line. He
Yeah.
says a line is a shape. It doesn't have to be whole or identify with something to be called a shape. He says, so as you're dancing, you're actually using sacred geometry. And if you find that you dance yourself in a big old circle, you're going to feel whole. You're going to feel like you are united
Oh,
as
I see.
a collective instead of like an individual. You're going to feel like you belong. I like
Okay.
that.
Or do it in a square if you feel like you need to be grounded.
Square dancing, mom,
Oh my
seriously.
God. Yeah. Oh my God. I hated that in middle school. Um,
Geometry is everywhere. Sacred
wow, that's
geometry is everywhere.
amazing. Does the 5G thing coming up, does that affect our sacred geometry?
Yes,
How so?
yes. because you can't physically see what is there, but sacred geometry is right in front of you. He says that vibration of 5G, it is a lower frequency. It causes illness to the physical body.
Oh
It
no.
causes cancer. Think of the damage that it's putting out there to the universe that we cannot see with our physical eye. This is why our earth is damaged. This is why the earth is hurting. It does affect the sacred geometry, the life.
Oh, it's not good.
It does. Oh my gosh, I bet like such huge goosebumps through my entire
Oh,
body right
well,
now.
how can we? I guess we could just start all dancing in triangles. Protect me, and my sacred geometry. Or a
Or
pyramid.
start
My sister
planting
made
sacred geometry.
huh?
Eric says, how about you start planting sacred geometry? He's literally like planting seeds in the ground.
Oh,
So foods like carrots, grapes, like plant, start getting natural sacred geometry going here on earth again. That will help it to
okay,
sustain more life. Um, it does damage, the Wi-Fi does damage sacred geometry. When I say damage, it's like it's your skin. Think of our skin as
yeah,
being the universe, okay? And the blood inside could be, you know, us, the people, we house it, right? Now
right,
we cut the skin, it's damaged, it's gonna bleed. And so now you have this wounded home, the
right,
universe, bleeding out
yeah,
because of, think of radiation. You can compare it to like radiation, how radiation damages your physical body and how it damages many other things too.
yeah.
Uh, that type of frequency is damaging. It's damaging to the universe. It's damaging to what you cannot see
Well,
to the,
what can
with
we
the physical
do?
eye, the water.
Yeah, what can we do?
Eric says,
Besides not have it.
stop,
Yeah,
stop fucking using stuff that is not necessary.
I know. Come on,
He
let's
says,
go back to
I do. What's
dial-up.
the big point of it? He says,
Really?
plug in. He says, you're damaging yourself.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's see. How does uh, how does sacred geometry relate to how our souls connect to source and to each other? I mean, you kind of talked about that early on.
Your cellular DNA and your DNA. So he says that's on a soul level. We talk about our DNA. Our DNA is there before we come in. You may think that your DNA comes in from mommy and daddy, you know, Eric stuff. No, no, no. That's not where DNA comes from. God, I'm trying so hard to keep it together. He's on one today.
Come on, Eric, give her a little
That's
break.
not where DNA comes from. He says you have soul DNA that comes from sacred
Oh,
geometry.
oh yeah.
When you
Like
look under a
spiritual DNA, right?
microscope,
Is that what you're talking about?
yes,
Okay.
yes. He says, think about looking under a microscope, Mom, and say you get an image of, I don't know, grass, and you're looking at what grass looks like under a microscope. The little circles that you're going to see are the little lines that you're going to see identify with who you are, your soul DNA.
Ah.
Sacred geometry, it's who you are.
Okay, so double-stranded DNA, that shape. What? Tell me about the sacred geometry of that. I mean, the actual cellular
This
in the
is it.
nucleus. Yeah.
So when you think of like the shape of our soul DNA, you're thinking it has like this great shape to it, right? It has actually what we consider like shaped circle, something that's like whole, right? That's not what shape is necessarily. I see like one line as
Okay.
being the center or the gateway.
Okay. Interesting. How does it tie into sacred geometry? Tie into time, or does it even?
It's an illusion. Time is an
Well,
illusion.
linear time. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
No,
Back
no,
up.
no.
No.
He says,
How does it
he's
tie
backing
into
up.
our?
He goes beep, 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 beep. He's backing
Yeah,
up.
really.
He says,
How does it
Mom,
tie into our chakras? I mean, tell me about sacred geometry and the chakras.
he's talking about sacred geometry with the time again. And he
Okay.
says, well, when you think about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, again, we're looking at numbers. You're looking at also planets. He says, you don't realize how much you identify with the time of the day, with what the planets are doing, where they're shifting, where they are going. He says those planets are helping to shift this shapes, the dimensions of where all of that sacred geometry is residing.
Yeah.
Give me an analogy. So time, morning, you think of 7 a.m. morning,
Right.
right? You think of
Ugh,
night,
I didn't want to think
7
about that.
p.m., right? Nighttime, we're going to bed. You're doing two different things. We've got a sun and we've got a moon. Our planets are shifting, right? And so when you think about that shift that's happening, you're doing different things at a different time of the day. So say you're growing from a child to an adult, you're going to have a different form of shift, a different form of reality that you're going to be seeing.
Okay.
Does that help to dumb it down?
Yeah, yeah. Like real quick, because we're almost out of time. So astrology, does that have a a sacred geometry to it?
In its own way, yes. The planets, it's all, he's talking about the structure, the shape, the material, the form, like cellular DNA, where it actually begins. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so does our astrological sign, it must have a sacred geometry, does that influence our basic sacred geometry as an individual? And is that why we have
100%.
certain personalities, etc.?
Absolutely, 100%.
That's all
When
physics
you
behind it.
think about like a crab, for instance,
Yeah.
Cancer, you know, some of them can be very emotional and crabby. That's, what happens. So you identify with the shape like a crab. You can identify with a symbol, what it represents, like a scorpion. They're not very friendly. But beyond that, you get that personality. See, he says, see how you can identify with animals with sacred geometry as symbols, such as the scorpion or the snail, slow, fast,
Yeah.
aggressive.
Yeah.
Sacred geometry is that same exact way. What does that shape identify with for you? What does it mean for
So
you?
it's very
For
personal.
everybody, it
Yeah.
mean yes. For everybody, they can mean different things, or they could be very identical. But its vibration is going to resonate to the individual.
Okay, I got just a couple more questions. Does each universe have its own sacred geometry? Okay.
Multiple
Wow.
universes of sacred geometry. There's like a universe inside of a universe with different sacred geometries that grow and connect together, like the superpowers sharing superpower together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a merge.
All right. So really, I mean, you go from small to infinite. Even atoms and molecules have a particular sacred geometry, and the cells and the organ systems, all that goes blah, 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 reality, universes, etc. Right? It's like
And it builds
Russian
up.
nesting dolls. I swear.
Yes, how you
Cool.
can keep identifying with layer and layer and growing.
Okay.
But it's not something where you ever outgrow space.
Okay.
You run out of room. You are flexible. You
Okay.
identify and you continue to shape differently.
All right. This person says, I'm studying frequencies and want Erik to share how the frequencies of the universe can heal people.
It's a whole another topic in itself, but they vibrate at a different frequency, a vibration. So
Okay.
for instance, like if you are at, think about chakras, each chakra vibrates at a certain frequency. If you're using a tuning fork, you can use that sound for your heart chakra. Say it's
Yeah.
like an H
Like
something.
sound
There's
therapy,
different,
color
there,
therapy. It's all
yes,
changing frequencies to heal. Okay, we could do that as an actual
items,
topic. That'd be cool.
sounds, music, they
Hmm.
all carry a frequency with it. And so your body
Numbers.
is going to resonate to that.
Okay.
Whatever,
All right.
he
I
says
would.
there's not one frequency for a healing for all.
Okay.
There's a number of infinite types.
All right.
He
So
says it's
somebody wants to know the significance of the 369, sequence, and how we can use this in our daily lives. Tesla referred to this, and I also believe that it is connected with carbon. Maybe is it the
Carmen.
the carbon molecule? Maybe I don't know. But
Oh,
369.
He says it identifies with the carbon, but it is not its identity, but it does identify with it. He's explaining 369 as being a pattern and also as being even. When you think of odd and even, this quality has even qualities to it, equal qualities, right? He says, so they're trying to communicate to you that there's something of equal quality that's taking place or that needs to take place. It also has to do with growth, but he's not talking about like a human growth. He's talking about like a cellular growth. I don't know how to explain this. It's like a vibration growth. Um, it's not
Okay.
tangible. It is not physical. It's growth, but I can't see it.
Okay. All right. So the Fibonacci sequence is such that each number is the sum of the two preceding ones, starting from 0 and 1. What is there? Is that related to sacred geometry? Oh, I have to hurry.
It says it's communication. Yes, it is all communication.
Okay. Okay. So the last question is,
Warnings.
okay, the last thing that one person asked, can we use sacred geometry to flush out limiting belief systems? I guess if you can heal with sacred geometry, you can do that too, right?
Yes, absolutely, you can. And so when it comes to healing belief systems, you have to really allow yourself to identify with something new and disconnect from what you have always known. So there's different steps to it. This is a huge part that can help you with healing. Just begin with meditation and envisioning the shapes to come to you. Releasing energy is what you really want to work on, because when you're releasing
Oh,
something that you've known, you've got to have room to have growth. So if you don't release it, you won't have growth. A lot like,
okay.
sacred geometry, you have to be able to have it grow around you.
Okay, wow. That we could do a whole thing on healing and frequencies and sacred geometry in healing. So last but not least, how can we best use sacred geometry in our day-to-day lives?
Pay attention to symbols, pay attention to license plates, pay attention to
And do what
things
with
that
that
stand out to
information?
you,
What do we do with that
and
information?
see what it means to you. He says, pay attention to your mind and
Ah, your
ask yourself, why am I
thoughts.
really drawn to looking at this
Yeah.
square for so much? Why am I really drawn to looking at triangles? What does it mean to you? He says, at that point, if it doesn't mean anything to you, he says, then you go and you look it up, because you can
Yeah.
find anything on Google.
Oh my
And then
God,
you're going
yeah.
to really find that things resonate with you. He says it's a way of communication, whether this is from the gods, your guides, your loved ones, extraterrestrials. He says it's a way of communication. These can be signs of warnings. These can be
Mm,
signs of happy times. He says it depends on what's going on during that time, whether there's like catastrophe in your life or happiness in your life.
yeah.
Um,
So I bet thoughts also have
they can carry
their
you.
own sacred geometry, right? So beware of your
Yes.
thoughts, because sacred geometry is pretty much the building block, right, of reality,
Yes.
of
That is
manifestation.
where we
Oh my
start.
God, we could even go into law of
So,
attraction and how it's related to, you know,
yes,
sacred
because
geometry, but we don't have time. So
your thoughts carry energy. And
yeah.
so that energy is forming sacred geometry,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a shape that you're aware of or not. And
Yeah.
if it's a bad thought, like that color, black and white, you can be very blackish if it's bad thought. Or if it's a positive thought, you could be very white.
Okay.
So, think about that.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you guys. You guys check out Raylene at angelmedium7.com, which I'll put here. Thank you, Raylene. And let's talk about
You're
what
welcome.
this is kind of cool. We can do a whole thing on sacred geometry, frequency, healing, COVID 19, etc. Y'all be safe out there. I love you, Eric. I love you,
Absolutely.
Raylene. Bye.
I love you lots. Be safe, everybody. Erik says bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.